Hey guys, Sue's here. Welcome back to another Keto Dinner Ideas video. This week we're doing a special episode that is full of all original keto fish recipes. This was by special request. Hope you guys like it. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, join our crew, and let's get into the video. First up, I made a harissa, coconut, salmon, and broccoli sheet pan meal. So to start with, in a pot, I'm adding 1 cup of coconut milk, and then I'm going to add some harissa. You can see this is the one I use here. I'm using a mild one, and I'm adding a tablespoon and a half of that to my pot, along with 1.5 tablespoons of liquid aminos and a tablespoon of minced ginger. And I do have this on medium heat, and I am whisking this all together until it's nice and combined and smooth. Now I am bringing that up to a bubbling simmer before adding 1 pound of thawed and drained broccoli florets. These are the Kirkland organic ones I get at Costco, and I'm just adding those to my pot and giving it a good stir until all of my broccoli is fully coated. Now over on a rimmed cookie sheet lined with nonstick foil, I am taking 3, these are about 6.5 ounces each of Keto salmon. Now a lot of people don't like Keto salmon. It's referred to in the past as chum salmon. I actually like the way it tastes better than sockeye salmon, and it is so much more affordable. So to that, I'm taking a couple tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm just dividing that among the salmon and rubbing it over each one. And then I'm just going to take this last one and make sure that I spread that olive oil all over the whole sheet pan. Now, if you're cooking from frozen fish, make sure that you do not ignore where it tells you to not thaw it in the vacuum seal. I used to always ignore that, but you need to at the very least cut your seal open so that it introduces oxygen so that you don't get botulism potentially, or listeria. But anyway, introduce oxygen, cut it open, take it out, thaw it that way. Now I'm sprinkling some salt and pepper onto each of my salmon fillets, and then I'm just taking a spoon and spreading out that broccoli evenly among the sheet pan. And then I'm going to use that spoon to take the rest of that sauce that is left in the bottom of my pot and spoon that over each piece of salmon. And I am popping this into a 350 degree oven for 30 minutes because I like mine extra well done, but you could do it for 20 or 25 if you like your salmon less well done. Here's what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. And here's what it looks like plated up. My husband loves the way the broccoli tastes like this. I really liked the way the salmon turned out, and I wasn't as big of a fan of the broccoli because I'm not a big fan of broccoli. But this was a very delicious recipe, and I will definitely be making it again. And if you make this, tag us on Instagram, let us know what you think about it. Next up, this is one of my favorite recipes of the week. I made a broiled cod and roasted rutabaga recipe. So to start with, in a large bowl, I just have here in a bag some pre-prepped rutabaga. Now this was a very small rutabaga. We just peeled it, and then my husband diced it for me. I'm sticking it in this bowl, and I'm sprinkling it with a little bit of avocado oil and tossing that around until all of the rutabaga is nice and fully coated. Now when I was originally writing this recipe, I was going to use Lowry's seasoning salt for it, and the second ingredient in that is sugar. So of course I will not be using that. And it's just a reminder for me to tell you guys that whenever you're cooking with seasonings, especially blends, you need to, watch out for your carbs, because they're going to tell you that there's 0 carbs in them, but they'll give you a serving size of like 1/4 of a teaspoon. That's going to add up. So whenever you're cooking in your recipes, just kind of figure in your head that there might be 1 or 2 additional net carbs in whatever you're cooking from your seasoning and your spices, for the ones that tell you it's 0, because it's never really 0, right? And they legally just don't have to give you that information. So a lot of times it's almost exactly 1 carb, but because it's not quite 1 carb, they can tell you 0. Now instead, I'm using some Tony's Creole seasoning. If you don't have that, it's just a blend of salt and pepper, red pepper, chili powder, and garlic powder. Now once I have those all evenly coated in that seasoning, I am just dumping them out on, again, a non-stick foil lined cookie sheet, and I am going to go ahead and spread those out, and I'm going to put my cod on this same cookie sheet later, so I'm leaving an open space for that. I'm popping this into a 400 degree oven for 40 minutes. Once that comes out of the oven, our rutabaga is going to be mostly cooked. I'm going to take my 2 cod fillets. These are about 7 ounces each, and I am just, don't come at me for it, but I'm using some lemon juice concentrate, okay? If you have fresh lemon, that would be better. And I'm just squirting a little bit of that on each piece of cod, and then I melted a tablespoon of butter on the stove top, and I'm just using a little silicone basting brush to brush that over each piece of cod, and then I'm also sprinkling it with salt and pepper to taste. And I'm going to pop this into my broiler now for 5 minutes for the first go round, because we don't want our rutabaga to get too dark. And I'm making sure my broiling rack is about 6 inches from the top, and of course your door's cracked while you're broiling. You can see my rutabaga started getting a little crunchy like I want it, but I don't want it to get too dark. And technically my fish is probably already fully cooked right now, so I'm not worried about any cross-contamination. So I'm just going to spoon those rutabaga off of the cookie sheet, and then again, because I like my fish well done and I want it nice and brown on top, I popped it back into the broiler for another 10 minutes, and here's what it looks like when it's all done, plated up. This was absolutely delicious. I saved half of mine and ate it the next day for leftovers, and this rutabaga was even great reheated the next day. Next up, this is one of my favorite meals of the week. This is like a cast iron ahi tuna with green beans. So to start with, I'm going to put together a little rub to put on our ahi tuna. So I'm mixing 1/4 teaspoon paprika, 1/2 teaspoon turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon coriander, a whole teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon white ground pepper, and then I'm just using the back of my measuring spoon to kind of mash that onto the side of my prep dish and make sure it's all mixed together nice and smooth. I'm taking 2 6.5 ounce ahi tuna fillets. These were pre-frozen, so they're not as bright and red and luscious looking as I would like my ahi tuna to be, which is why we're cooking it in cast iron instead of serving it rare. I usually eat my ahi tuna rare for anybody that is judging me for cooking it more well done. And I'm just taking it on my plate, and I'm sprinkling both sides with this rub directly on the fish and rubbing it in really well. Then I'm taking about a tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm just sprinkling that over both sides of my ahi tuna. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of our rub and sprinkle that onto the sides of our ahi tuna just to make sure that it's all nice and fully coated. Next up, I have my cast iron skillet already getting really hot over here on the stove. It is on medium-high heat. I did not add any additional oil to it. It is a well-seasoned cast iron skillet, and I am putting our ahi tuna directly on there, not moving them, and I'm cooking them for 3 minutes. Then I'm going to flip them over and do the other side for 3 minutes too. I'm going to go ahead and do a little switcheroo in the pan on these, just because I don't know if my floor is crooked or what, but my stove cooks. You can see one side's cooked more than the other. After another 3 minutes on the other side, I'm going to go ahead and remove these. I did already go ahead and cut my heat down on the cast iron because once it gets hot, it maintains the heat. Sticking my ahi to the side to rest. Once my cast iron cools down a little bit, I'm adding a couple tablespoons of olive oil directly to the pan, a teaspoon of minced ginger, and then I am stirring that immediately to make sure it doesn't burn. And I'm adding 2 cups of long stem petite green beans that are thawed and drained. And we're going to get a good sear on these in that hot heat that's still in our pan. I'm pouring 1/4 cup liquid aminos over the top of those, and I'm going to continue to just cook these in that seasoning blend until they have some nice color to them. And here you go, all plated up. I just have my ahi tuna here. You could also top this with a little sesame oil if you wanted, but I found it was great just as is. And these green beans were, oh my gosh, they were like the highlight of this meal. And like I said, I normally eat my ahi tuna rare to medium rare, so this was more medium to well done, and I'm going to just cut into this so that you can kind of see the inside of it. And I generally do not like ahi tuna cooked any more than red rare in the middle, but this is a nice light pink, and it was absolutely delicious this way. Next up, this is very interesting recipe I threw together. It's a dill and fennel seasoned mahi with some tomatoes and cauliflower rice. So to start with, I took 3 mahi fillets that I thawed out. These are just wild caught mahi. I buy in a big huge bag at Costco, little salt and pepper, and some dill weed on each side. And these fillets, I don't know if I just said that or not, they're about 6.5 to 7 ounces a piece. Just flipping those over, and I'm gonna do the same salt, pepper, and dill combo of seasoning on the other side. Meanwhile, I'm heating 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil over medium heat in a large saute pan. I am adding, this is in a 1/4 cup measuring cup, but you can see it's chopped larger than what I normally cook with for my onion. I normally use it really fine, so I would say it's not even a 1/4 of a cup of onion, so it's going to be even less carbs than that. But I added that, cooked it for a little bit until it started to soften, and then I added a heaping teaspoon of minced garlic and cooked it for about another 30 seconds to a minute until it was nice and fragrant. Then I am adding 1.5 cups of cauliflower rice, and it is just frozen cauliflower rice. I didn't even thaw it out, and it didn't take it long to go ahead and cook up and soften. Once it did, I'm adding 1 cup of drained diced tomatoes, and I just used canned tomatoes, but make sure that you use ones that don't have any added sweetener or anything like that would add extra carbs. To that, I'm adding a teaspoon of fennel seed, 1/4 a teaspoon sea salt, and 1/4 of teaspoon of black pepper. And we're just mixing this around and continuing to cook until everything is nice and mixed together. And I am going to go ahead and bring that to almost a boil and let it continue cooking down a little for about 10 minutes. And then I'm just flattening it all out, and I'm gonna lay my mahi right across the top, and I still have it on medium heat. And then I'm just gonna put a lid on and let this continue to lightly simmer for 15 minutes with that lid on, and that steam is going to cook our fish for us. And there you go, that's what it looks like when it's all done. And here it is plated up. Now this was one of my favorite meals of the week as well. My husband wasn't as big of a fan of this. He said he loved the fish, but he's not as big of a fan of the tomatoes mixed with the cauliflower rice. But I loved this. I found it so good and refreshing. I don't even really like raw tomatoes that much, but I guess I really loved this because growing up, we ate a ton of fish stews and stuff. So just that mixture of a good seasoned cooked fish with some tomatoes on the side just brings back all the feels of that, and I think that's why I loved it. So there you go, guys. That's this week's Keto Dinner Ideas Special Keto Fish Recipes Edition. Big, exciting, awesome news. I've been working really hard to build a website for Susan the Crew. It is still very much a work in progress, but I will have it linked down below with printable copies of these recipes. Please share this video with your friends. The more engagement it gets, the more motivated we are to keep doing it. Subscribe to our channel, like it, all those things. And until next time, bye guys.